was a huge day in the fantasy football and best ball landscape. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor, crazy news. We'll get into that. And of course, cut day. Teams are cutting guys. Not a ton of surprise cuts, but some very impactful situations that we will get into here. A little bit more confirmation on some backup running backs and some end of the roster guys. We'll dive into all that. And of course, try to diagnose what the heck to do with this Jonathan Taylor and Colts news here on Spike Week Sickos. Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, liftoff.
You buried the lead. Lamar Jackson got cut today.
God, you're a clickbait artist. You should go work for ESPN or a local newspaper. They got to do all that. So, okay, we have been known to rant about stupid stuff, particularly recently. Some things like soup that people don't like us ranting about. But the thing that you mentioned there, like in terms of like a clickbait joking like headline or whatever. Mm-hmm. I've noted at least all of my local like St. Louis like newspapers and stuff like this. I don't really know exactly how true it is around the country, but if you're like on Instagram, or I try not to get on Facebook, but they send so many damn notifications that I have my ADD or my OCD. I need to like close out the notifications. But anyway, anything on social media, the way they word these headlines is so triggering to me. That because obviously, and then you have to pay, right? You have to pay to access or whatever. And it's like this long running restaurant in downtown St. Louis, and it's like 50 words that everyone loves is shutting down in a week, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, of course I would like to know, is what restaurant is shutting down. But like it's like if we were like Lamar Jackson got cut today, and did a thumbnail of like, oh my God, or whatever, be like total clickbait. But it just reminded me of that because it totally triggers me. And something that triggered me today was this total nonsense with Jonathan Taylor. I don't know what's going on. On one hand, I'm curious how you've been handling him and the whole situation. For me, I understand why people were taking Jonathan Taylor in the second round. And like in terms of our rankings, I didn't have him like too far past ADP or whatever. I think he was fine in the second round, even during all this chaos, right? Even like before. Then he requests the trade, and I'm like, oh man, he's falling after requesting the trade when the trade might be like the thing that really, really unlocks his upside, right? If he goes to the Dolphins, it's like, holy shit, dude, wheels up for JT. And so in the mid to late third, sometimes in the fourth round, I was taking him. I had like 1% JT before all this stuff, and I was hammering him. I was setting out in drafts to take him. And I was doing things like I was taking a bunch of him with Evan Hall. I have teams with JT, Evan Hall, and Deion Jackson, just being like, dude, if he gets traded, just give me all these, running back points. I don't really care how they happen. And so now after a week of pummeling drafts to take this guy, this was like the only outcome that you didn't want if you've been taking him of late. And so this is like worst case. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a lot of like really insightful things to say. We'll get into where we think he should be ranked and what you should do with him and how you should think about him. But this is, to me, worst case scenario. Obviously, coming back to the Colts was like not the best, but not the worst. And getting traded somewhere that wanted him, that was assuredly going to use him, was the nut outcome, like especially if it's Miami, was great. And so this doesn't get much worse than this. I don't know if that's how you feel about it, but that's how I feel.
I was already not drafting Taylor. I just looked at my exposures today just to double check and see what I have. I had 1% on underdog. So like 1 or 2 teams or something like that out of like 200 and something teams. And I have 3% on both DK and on drafters. So the drafters is going to go down as well. Sometimes you just got to take a step back and listen to what teams are telling you. I know I've said this a few times throughout the year, but this situation, out of all the running back situations, there was like 3 levels of like gross this year. Up top, where it was like almost neutral, was the Saquon Barkley one, which got resolved really fast, right?
Shout out Saquon. Shout out Saquon, by the way. He was like, he was the quickest one to be like, I should probably just take this bag real quick. This is not going to end well.
Right.
And like nobody else really learned from him. Jacobs finally caved, right? But like nobody has really learned. And Saquon is the smart guy in the room. Apparently they're giving out good educations at Penn State, but maybe not at Wisconsin.
Well, Josh Jacobs was number 2. And you kind of felt like that was going to fall in line with what Saquon did. And he ended up getting a little more money. But the JT one was already down at the bottom as soon as shit started coming out. As soon as we started hearing about trade request and the Jim Irsay thing, who's clearly a psychopath as well, just based on not only this, but some of his other stuff that he has going on, right? Allegedly.
His whole life.
His
life.
So like, it felt like it was heading to a bad end. And what this team was telling me, much like I thought with the Raiders, is that Indy is going to be dysfunctional this year. You're bringing in a rookie quarterback who has major upside, but he's going to be a developmental project, right? Like we know that about Anthony Richardson. Yeah, he might come in and rush. There's going to be a lot more rough games than good games, I think, this year for Anthony Richardson. It's not going to be pretty. Then you add the Jonathan Taylor stuff. Shit's starting to swirl around there a little bit. And I just kind of went, all right, not taking the Colts. And look, you want to take Colts because they're playing the Raiders week 17 because it's in a dome. I mean, dude, bad football teams are going to be bad football teams. And if you think that it's going to lead to scoring, then God bless. Go do what you want to do with that. But the Colts have told you all offseason that they are getting ready to rebuild. They are not negotiating with their players properly. They're not building a good football team currently.
Oh, no.
The saving grace is maybe their division's the worst division in football. Maybe NFC South has something to say about that as well. But that's like the saving grace for Indy, that they're still in it. But if a team, 90% of the time when a team is telling you something, you need to listen to it. You can't go against it. Like, it's just that simple sometimes. And maybe I'll be wrong. And maybe the Colts will be good and I'll lose a lot of money because I wasn't going to bet on the Colts. But I feel good about not betting on the Colts this year, is what I will say. So that includes Jonathan Taylor. That includes Anthony Richardson to an extent. That includes Pittman. Like I'll take some shots on Pierce Slade and stuff like that because of price. But there are teams that are actively telling you they're going to be bad this year. The Colts, the Cardinals are, I mean, has anyone ever told you they're going to be as bad? They're going to be.
They traded for Josh Dobbs instead of trading for Trey Lance solely because like Trey Lance is worse than Josh Dobbs, I think, right now. But there are outs to like there is a chance Trey Lance is not complete could. Oh my God, he got out of San Francisco and maybe Shanahan just hated him and he pops in and wins them a couple of games. They were like, we are tanking so hard, we cannot risk bringing in a guy who might have some upside. We got to get this dusty veteran who is not like Josh Dobbs. Honestly, the shout out to him for the end of the year with the Titans, with the Malik Willis thing and coming in and starting or whatever. He's gonna just be that crappy backup that's not gonna be a total embarrassment, right? He's not gonna be Nathan Peterman, but they didn't even want to risk taking an upside shot on a guy because they want to be bad so terribly. And I think that's really what the Colts are doing. I think those two teams in particular have given us as you said, the clearest indication of what their plans are. And I think a lot of teams we're going to get to later in the season. We've talked about this with like the Raiders and stuff, why we are being very cautious and timid towards all Raiders. Like, again, unless it's like, maybe Zamir at the end or Michael Mayer or something like that, who could actually gain upside in this this type of an outcome. But it's like, if things go bad for the Raiders, like they're not tied to Jimmy, they're not tied to Josh Jacobs, Devontae ain't gonna want to play if they're bad, like they're not tied to Hunter Renfrow, they're not tied to any of these dudes. Frankly, the front office is not tied to Josh McDaniel. He may be fucking gone if they suck, which I guess is a perk for them trying to win. But like, that is at least a situation where in weeks 1 through 4 or whatever, the Raiders are going to try to win games. I'm very confident in that. I'm not confident they're going to be able to do it, which will later in the season. But the Colts, I tweeted the Indianapolis Colts are an unserious football team.
Yep.
They are not serious. They are, for anyone that has played, Madden over the years. I don't know if this is something that other people do or not. It's just an illness that I have, but particularly back in the day, I don't really play anymore. You start a franchise with like the worst team in the league, right? My favorite was when we had expansion with the Texans. You get to do the expansion draft. You're going to suck, right? But you tank. You're like, I don't want to, I'm not going to play the games and win and lose out on the number 1 pick in the next draft, right? You want to lose the games to get the first overall pick in the next year. You import the draft class, you get the superstar quarterback, whatever. That's what the Colts and the Cardinals are doing. They are competing to get the rights to Caleb Williams or, right, obviously they both have quarterbacks, but that number 1 pick, whether they want to trade Kyler Murray, right? You get rid of Kyler Murray and you bring Caleb Williams in, or the Colts would probably roll with Anthony Richardson unless it's a big disaster this year, which it could be. But you could, someone is going to pay a fucking king's ransom for the 101 next year. And it's like that thing, this is the most valuable time to be tanking. And these two teams have shown us that they are both completely unserious. They are not even just like we're talking about from a fantasy perspective and all that. Go look at the Colts defense. Go look at the roster, and I bet you can't name almost any of those dudes because they are starting late round rookies in their secondary this year. And there are dudes out there you could go get. I mean, Bradley Roby got cut today. He's I'm not saying he's great, but the Saints cornerback. There are dudes who can come in. You can probably field a not horrible secondary with, but they were never they never brought anybody in, right? Cardinals, same way. They're not bringing dudes in, right? I'm surprised Zach Ertz is even back practicing. I'm surprised they didn't tell him just to shut it down. Oh man, maybe we'll trade you at the trade deadline or something. These teams are not trying to win. So to your point, they're showing us something. And so on the JT thing, me and you were the same. In a second, once he demanded the trade, I was like, the market took him when he was with the Colts when I didn't want him at a higher price. Then he says, get me the hell out of here. And the Colts are willing to do it. And he's falling sometimes to the 4th round. I'm like, well, if I'm ever going to get this chance to get a hero 4th round Jonathan Taylor team, with you could build, I built robust running back teams with late 3rd Jonathan Taylor, 5th round Breece Hall, and 6th or 7th round J.K. Dobbins. It's that opportunity was never going to be available to me in the history of fantasy football. So I took some of that, and the risk. That's just how these things go. You have to understand that there's massive risk in those situations. But generally speaking, like you said, I hardly dropped any Cardinals, a little bit of Trey McBride, a little bit of Keontae Ingram. I really don't like the Michael Wilson thing, but I understand why people do it. And on the Colts, same thing. I take some Alec Pierce because I like him and I think he's pretty good. We'll get to this in a second. Their 53-man roster. Josh Downs, same thing. Last round pick, going to play in the slot full time for the Colts. They're going to suck and be trailing a lot. I don't touch the tight ends because they kept 5 of them motherfuckers on the active on the 53. And then obviously I've been known for my Evan Hull love because in the last round pick, I might have a starting running back. I know they're going to suck, but he catches passes. So it's if he's going to get goal line carries and catch passes, I know they may only score 7 points, but he might be the one that gets it. And that's all that matters in the last round. So same thing as you. I think it's a good day to kind of take a step back and think about what are these teams showing us, right? They're definitely showing us their hand. Not everybody is, but those two teams in particular. And part of why I was buying JT is because I feel like the Dolphins have showed us our hand on the totally opposite end of the spectrum. I think they're the new Saints, where it's we don't care about the cap, or the new Rams, I guess. We don't care about the cap. We don't care, what's the Michael Jordan fuck them kids meme or whatever. It's the Rams and the Dolphins, fuck them picks. I don't want my draft picks. Give me all the veterans because I'm going to try to win a Super Bowl right now. Mike McDaniel wants to win a Super Bowl when Tua is cheap and before Tyreek retires, and before they got to pay Waddle. Now is the all-in time. So I thought that they would probably do it, but apparently the Colts asking price was just, they wanted more.
That was always going to be the problem.
Yeah, Irsay's not a sane. You're not working with a sane human being.
Because they were going to ask for too much. The Colts knew exactly what they were going to do this entire time. They knew they weren't trading him at this point. Trade deadline, if they're 2-4, which their schedule isn't the worst schedule to start the year. They start against the Jags, which is tough, but then they get the
Well, the
Texans.
Jags are going to kick their fucking teeth in. I already bet that
Probably.
one. It's already gone up like 2 points.
But they have the Texans, the Rams, and the Titans, and 3 of their first 6 games. The other ones are the Ravens and the Jags twice. So they could theoretically be 3-3. I would assume they're not going to be. I would bet more likely they're going to be 1-5 at the end of that stretch of 6 games going into like the trade deadline area. But the Colts knew they weren't going to get what they were demanding for a trade, because whoever was trading for JT was also going to have to sign a contract extension.
Right.
And you're
right.
and even if you say fuck those picks,
you have to pay a draft pick haul to pay a running back for $40 million for 3 years. Like, that's absurd.
Yeah, they're never going to do it. So like this was always the way this was going to go. And I'm not trying to say I'm some sort of clairvoyant, because someone brought up in the chat, show the Malik Davis exposure. And my Malik Davis exposure on DraftKings is like 17%.
This guy, ignore this guy. He comes in here just to be a douchebag.
But I have like 2% on the other 2 sites. But on DraftKings, my Malik Davis exposure is high, because we all thought in the beginning of the offseason, like Malik Davis was probably a lock for that job. It felt like it. I mean, he was the
RB3 last year. He catches passes. It's his best skill set. He got to play last year and was pretty good. Actually, I was not a Malik Davis guy even when he was at Florida. He was splitting with Damian Pierce, but like he showed, like Rico Dowdle, dude. Nobody saw Rico Dowdle coming.
Right.
There's we're talking about. It's funny. We're talking about this in the Discord, and people were on Rojo because it's like no one even knows who Rico Dowdle is. He's never played in the NFL, but apparently, right, he's been hurt, and the Cowboys have been high on him the whole time. He must be showing stuff in practice that they like, and he's just never been healthy. So we didn't know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we do. We learned that's new information. So, but we weren't working off that in May and June. We had no fucking idea. It was, how could you not assume Malik Davis was the next man up, given all the information that we had? You could also understand there's uncertainty, but I think that it was a totally reasonable thing to assume. But then when you learn more, right, that's how all this shit works. I didn't know that Kyron Williams is like going to be in a 50-50 split with Cam Akers. No chance. I was drafting Cam Akers before.
Same.
Now I just take Kyron Williams in every draft. But It's like, I didn't know that. We learned stuff over the offseason. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and just to put a close on this Jonathan Taylor thing, the way I ended up playing it was, I know you took Evan Hull, which I think was fine as well. I took some Evan Hull, but the way I played it was I started drafting more Kareem Hunt. And
I think
the late rounds. Some Leonard Fournette, like I was already high on Fournette, so I kind of smoothed it out since they did work out Kareem Hunt. I'm like, I don't like the offense. The offense sucks, but we're talking a 19th round pick, 18th round pick for a guy that might come in and just immediately get all the volume that he wants, because that way they can just kill a guy that they don't have to play next year.
They may want, Hull, I don't know about Deion Jackson. Hull might be a part of the future plans. Kareem Hunt is just going to go out there and be a punching bag. They don't care. They don't care.
So I've been playing it with taking Kareem Hunt. But man, I was looking back at some high stakes drafts that I did, like that Mastiff and Jonathan Taylor going in the second round there. It's like, man, that's got to be such a gut punch. Like, you take second round capital for a guy that definitely isn't playing the first 4 games and might might not even play. It sucks.
What do you think? What do you think happens? That's what Only Blur asks. Will JT even play in 2023? And
I think it ends up in court. Like, to be honest, like I haven't heard this scenario, but if the Colts try to shut him down for the year due to quote unquote medical conditions, and JT says he's ready to go and he's viable to play, and they put him out on some sort of injury thing so that he doesn't accrue his year, this might end up in some sort of, like, JT not playing this year, end up in court, and might just be way worse than we expect it to be. I don't know anything. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but like, just that's the way I was trying to think it through earlier today. It's like, what is the worst case scenario? And that feels like worst case scenario.
I mean, let's just say it's in the moment. This just happened. I didn't expect this outcome. Of course, this was always possible, but it also doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of his trade value to keep him on the pup, right? You should probably activate him, and that way you can continue to negotiate trade, right? Like no team's trading for him now. All you did was just screw up your trade negotiations for a month. So a lot of it, didn't really make sense. But again, we're not dealing with a sane organization or a sane human being in Ursay. So I don't have a lot of, super, super strong takes. I just say my sentiment is very negative, but I think that's probably what everyone is in the moment. It just doesn't seem sometimes. So like the Josh Jacobs thing, he was clearly pissed. He clearly, wanted to get paid, knew he really wasn't going to get paid in Vegas, and was just like, fuck this. I'm not going to go to camp. And it always felt like everyone said, like he would just show up eventually. Now eventually it could have been during the season, but it was probably, he was just going to take whatever 10 million or whatever the franchise tag is, or whatever 1-year deal they agreed to, and take that money and run. There weren't a lot of really alternative outcomes that made any form of sense. Whereas this one was like the most sense to me was probably him staying on the Colts, but them taking him off the pup, even if he wasn't going to be active on game days, and then try to trade him over the course of the next 6 weeks. But I don't know, man. I don't have the whole thing is toxic. The Colts seem really toxic. They're clearly not trying to win, but they also clearly are trying to, eventually just wait this thing. Because if they're not trying to win, they have no incentive to sell him low, even though, they really have no other options if they're going to trade him since they fucked up his whole trade value. But it's just weird. I don't have a prediction. I have a lot of strong takes about tons of different things, but I would just say I wouldn't be feeling super hopeful about JT right about now over the course of the season. And I don't think the Colts give a shit. And I don't think that we should treat them as like, this isn't even like Lev Bell with the Steelers, where that was awful, right, for fantasy. But at least like you kind of knew the Steelers probably were going to do something eventually. That's a relatively sane organization, even though they employed Big Ben and AB. But like they weren't going to do something kind of this crazy. Man, with the Colts, I really have no idea. So I don't have a strong take. I am trying to put a bow on the JT conversation and get to some more, a little bit more level-headed camp cut day stuff. I'm trying to finish up the kind of ranks, probably the last or one of the last updates to our rankings with all the cut day stuff. And JT is really impossible to rank. Is there there's always pretty much a price where you probably take the swing on the upside of someone like him, but where would you kind of think about starting to slot him in terms of rankings where you might draft him?
Oh, dude, I don't know. He's way behind. So he's behind like Rashad White for me at this point. So he'd have to slide. God, is he even like, I know it sounds gross theoretically, as much as I do like Brian Robinson, but wouldn't you still kind of want Brian Robinson over JT at this point? Or that might just be the sweet spot for it, like right in that range where you might be like, the upside, maybe, but I don't know if he's ever going to, I don't know if there's enough time for him to slide back that far as well.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem.
8 or 9 days or something left right now.
I think he'll get there. But it'll be real late, right? It's not like we're going to have a lot of time to pounce on 8th round JT, but I think he would eventually get there if if we had more runway. I was just looking. This isn't how I have him ranked.
5th rounder. No, he's not a 5th rounder. You take J.K. Dobbins. You take
Breece Hall goes in the 5th round on DraftKings. I'm not taking JT around. I'm definitely not. So to your point, so I'm not taking him obviously over Breece. Aaron Jones, Ken Walker, Madison, Pierce, Dobbins. I know I hate Miles Sanders, but I take Miles Sanders over him. I take James Cook over him. I take Javonte Williams over him. I don't really love the David Montgomerys and Cam Akers and stuff, but I would probably take them. James Conner is an interesting one because I want absolutely, at least he's
talking about two guys I don't want.
I have James Conner ranked really low, and I literally have never taken him unless it was an auto draft. So I think I'd probably take JT over James Conner because I think JT has outs to being traded still in the season.
Yeah.
What probability is that? I have no fucking idea how to line that, at least not yet. But I don't really see any outs to James Conner going somewhere. I mean, I guess technically a trade is possible, but JT is at least like really good. Connor is
you're drafting JT for him to get traded at this point. you're not drafting JT for him to play with the Colts again. I was like, that's just the way I look at it. So we always talk about threading needles and stuff like that. And you're adding more needles to thread for this situation to pay off. It's not just will JT play, it's will he get traded. And like you said, it is more likely towards the trade deadline. Hacker brings it up in the chat that CMC got traded at the deadline last year. I think that was very, very much more a unique situation for a unique player. Like, not that JT is not upper echelon running back, but CMC is this whole different breed that just really fits into what you would think the 49ers in particular would want to do with their running backs. So I just, we're talking draft capital, we're talking contract extension, we're talking a team really needs to be down bad, but still in the hunt for a Super Bowl. I don't know, man. It seems like we need a lot of shit to happen in order for Jonathan Taylor to be viable. If you want to start taking him at that James Conner range, I understand it. For sure. I'm probably just going to hit a wide receiver there most of the time.
Right.
But at this point, the only good outcome is for him to be traded.
I do think in terms of the running backs, I would take him over Connor. But like, I don't even like Rachaad White, but I would rather have Rachaad White, I think, right now. I'd rather have DeAndre Swift. I'd rather have Pacheco. I'd rather have Khalil Herbert, I think. Like you said, I think in the Washington, it's like I like both the Washington guys more than James Conner and more than Dalvin Cook. And the ADP doesn't necessarily dictate that. But I think it's there. I think it's, so what's that, 10th round, 9th round, 9th or 10th round or something like, because then also to your point, you also have to compare it to wide receivers and probably quarterbacks too, but generally wide receivers, right? And if like Bateman's still around or Burks is still around or somebody like that, like I'm going to take those guys too, like almost regardless of structure, I guess unless I started 7 wide receivers, I'm going to take one of those guys over him too. So it's tough. I've got some, and I've got some in the 3rd and 4th round. Most of my stuff is in the 3rd and 4th round. That's still not going to be great, but these contests are almost full, most of them. So like, there's going to be some teams that get later JT than me, but I still got generally good prices on JT. So I'm not really worried. And I don't think, like, you don't always have to buy the falling knife, right? You're like, shit, he's falling. This is going to be the right time to fall JT. Like, you can full fade him, dude. The odds that any one individual player is the guy you need, especially when we know they're going to miss 4 weeks and we know he doesn't want to play for the fucking team that he's on right now. Like, the odds that he's the guy you need is like really, really thin. Like, I think it's okay to just throw him in the trash and move on, and that's okay. If you want to dip your toes in right now, like you have drafted 0 of him, and you're like, maybe now's the right time to take 3 or 4 JT teams. I think that's fine too. But I think it's 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, somewhere in that ballpark is what I would do. This is just the last thing. Definitely, at least you don't have to worry about health. Right? He's not injured, so that is certainly nice. But like Hacker says, I think that this is kind of the case. It's the case for probably, to me, Lenny, maybe Hunt if he doesn't sign with the Colts. Right? It's the case for these veterans too, along with JT. So it's funny that he's in the same boat. But that's what the Colts are going to be hoping for. I mean, that's fucked up. But the Colts are going to be like, hope Eckler goes down because the Chargers are trying to win a Super Bowl. Hope Mostert and Wilson both go down. Right. Hope Dobbins goes down. So one of these teams come calling for JT, and then you do get a 2nd rounder for him or something like that. But right now, I think let's just sit tight and move on. Let's actually, this is a fair question. We can move from JT, but into the Dolphins. I think everybody was expecting, if he were to get traded, it would be to Miami. To answer this question, not really, but we need a little bit more news. I think over, we still got 8 days or 9 days to learn about the health of Jeff Wilson and Devin Achane. So right now I would say no, I would rather find somebody else, but we could get to next week and Wilson's full practice, and then I might change my tune a little bit, but I do think Mostert's going to get the first snap almost regardless of what happens over the course of this next week. And then, what are you thinking about this last week of the Dolphins running backs? Are you pretty into drafting them, or how are you treating them?
I'm still firing. So I had a ton of Achane already. So I'm not taking him as much because I'm just trying to smooth out a little bit of my Achane exposure. But I've been grabbing all of them. I've been grabbing Achane. I have a decent clip of Mostert, a decent clip of Wilson. It's just feels like you want exposure to one of those backs.
Yeah.
Currently in this season, if they don't trade for JT throughout the offseason. So like I feel like you're gonna be wrong on one of them for sure. One of them is not going to be fantasy relevant this year.
Mm-hmm.
At least. Probably two. But I think you can spray and pray like on Dolphins running backs, especially at cost. You're not investing huge capital on them. Like A-Chain was the highest at one point, which was like what, around 10, 11, somewhere in that wheelhouse, which is honestly where I got most of my A-Chain exposure.
Me too.
Which I'm still fine with, to be honest with you. Like it is what it is, because we're just talking about flipping guys from rounds back, like Gainwell and some of those guys, and they just kind of flip flop.
My A-Chain, Damian Harris, right? All these, like there's gonna be tons of movement. You're gonna buy guys that rise. You're gonna buy guys that fall. You're gonna get new late round picks with right. Like I have Kyron Williams, now on teams when I had Malik Davis, like you said at the beginning. It's like so much shit changes over the course of the summer. I try not to worry all that much about, right. As long as you don't move right now. I'm trying to think of a guy who fell. And Jameson Williams is probably one of the exceptions where you're like, oh, fuck, this guy was going in the 8th or 9th round. And now I'm not sure he's draftable and he's going in the 170s or 180s or whatever. But that's a really rare example, right? Or the opposite generally is like the starting running back gets hurt, backup goes from the 12th round to the 4th round or whatever. But other than that, dude, 20 picks here and there, so much stuff changes. You don't want it. You're like, I'm not seeking that out, but like, I'm not worried about my Damian Harris teams when I drafted him at 120, when he's going at 145, 150. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It seems like it's going to be fine no matter what. I mean, realistically, you always want the value, but we also know it doesn't fully matter. It still depends on the construction of how you built your teams and who you put them with, and how it might be the construction you need. You might need 2 second rounders to win an entire tournament this year instead of a first rounder. And that's going to be more viable with the later rounds for sure. So you don't want to get nuts. You don't want to be taking Michael Wilson in the 12th round, but if we're talking 2 rounds between 12 and 14, like who cares? Just grab them.
That's a great question. Mr. Shadow Dog says, I would offer a swift kick in the butt for JT. Do I take it or hold out? I assume it's not Dynasty. I would not sell low on him in Dynasty because his career is not over. He's going to be just fine. I do have him in one of my longest running Dynasty leagues, and I did turn down a big trade for him a couple weeks ago, and I'm tilting my fucking face off because I'm trying to win. I have a really good team that also happened to have the 101 that I traded for. So I have JT, Javante, like a bunch of studs, and I got Bijan, added Bijan to it. And so I should be really good. And then this dumb fuck is not going to play all season and I'm not going to win. And I traded away my first round. Anyway, in redraft, I assume this is redraft. Honestly, I would probably hold, but and see, like, kind of do what the Colts are doing and kind of wait and see, does anybody get desperate? Do we get some more news? See if you can grind out a couple wins to start the season. But if you told me, like, I'm going to get a starting tight end or something for him, and I just want to, redraft is so different, right? Like, I honestly would be okay. Like, dude, if somebody said, I'm going to give you Kyle Pitts for Jonathan Taylor right now, I'd be like, and I need a tight end, like, I'd probably just take it, because at least that gives you a chance to win for those first 4 weeks. All you got to do is get in the dance. This ain't best ball where we need that top 0.0001% outcome. If you're just, trying to scratch out some money in your league, I'd be fine dealing them.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's talk about some of the other kind of most notable things that have happened on cut day. We'll start. There's not like a total ton, but this is definitely, as you see at the top of your screen, a sicko show. And I feel like cut day is very much a sicko oriented and very much a best ball grinder focus. Like in your redraft leagues, there's maybe a couple things, setting JT aside, that happen that are impactful for you. In Dynasty, maybe there's a little bit more stuff that happens to you, but in best ball, I actually feel like a lot of things, it's very much around the edges, and in the 17th through 20th rounds, things that matter here. But 2 I guess I would say two big things for sure. I'm gonna call it maybe three big things happen for me, and I want to see if this are kind of some of the biggest things for you. One, back to the kind of original point we were talking about what the Colts and the Cardinals are showing us. This is not a cut day situation, but Kyler Murray is not being pulled off of PUP as well, and so he's going to be out for the first 4 games at least. So similar, he's the JT of quarterbacks. We don't really know what's going to go on with Kyler Murray, and as we said, they are showing us their hand. They have showed us their hand all summer in what their intentions are. They have two probably early first because they have the Texans first next year, and so they're building for next year and into the future. They don't really have a lot of reason to play Kyler Murray. And so I have not been drafting Kyler Murray either. I understand why people might, because he's Kyler Murray and he's going very late. And, the week 17 is all that matters, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's, as you totally outlined, I think they've shown us their plans here. And I don't have a lot of faith that Kyler comes back immediately after. He is coming off blowing out his knee. So it isn't just like they're shutting him down like JT. He's a running quarterback who is not even a year off of an ACL tear. Combine that with how bad they're going to be on offense. I mean, he's throwing to a bunch of dudes his size. Their offense is like legitimately hilarious. If I know they have Michael Wilson playing on the outside, but if they wanted to somehow try to play like Rondale Moore on the outside, they could have a 5'9" quarterback with a bunch of 5'9" and 5'7" wide receivers. Not even fucking kidding you. Dortch and Rondale are both 5'7". Hollywood's 5'9" or something, and Kyler is little. They have this awful offense that I just don't have any faith in. And I don't have faith that he's we talk about week 17 is all that matters. It's certainly possible that they want to get him back out there late in the year and see what they have in him. I think that would be smart, but that's a really big assumption of rational coaching and rational organizational management. And I don't know that I think we might just see Clayton Tune or, somebody out there in week 6. Why would you send Kyler out to go get beat up by the Eagles in week 17? I don't have a lot of faith in it, and I think it just shows kind of what you said with the Colts, that the Cardinals are pretty unserious about this season, and I'm personally not drafting him. And a little bit of Trey McBride, a little bit of Keontae Ingram. I get the Michael Wilson thing, but I'm not really taking Hollywood either. He's kind of maybe a shittier version of Pittman, honestly, in that comparison. But it was a pretty big deal, actually. The fact that I think that they'd shown us their cards, but this was okay, now we flipped them over for sure. We know what the Cardinals are doing.
Yeah, and we go back to that original point I made with Jonathan Taylor about threading needles. So the Cardinals are showing you they want to be bad. I mean, there's no other words for what they've done with this roster this offseason than that they are tanking this year. The next red flag is the knee injury, like you brought up for, Kyler, who I always thought was a smart runner, but he's not going to be able to run like he used to. And
really smart runner. Some people need to take notes from him. Josh Allen should take some fucking notes. That dude, Kyler, slides like crazy. He doesn't take any hits ever.
Yep. Gets out of bounds. He's smart, but he's still coming off the knee injury. He's not going to run like he used to. He shouldn't be running like he used to this year. It's a dead season for the Cardinals, right? He's going to be out 4 games. There's a heavy chance they're 0-4. And if the knee's not 100%, why would he come back at that point? So we extend his out. Now all of a sudden they're 2-8 or something like that. I mean, I think that's being optimistic, really. Their win total is 3.5.
You mentioned the Colts might be to have 2 or 3 wins. I know that the Texans are not very good. I know that the Rams and stuff are not very good. Those teams are at least trying, and they have some talent on the roster. It's not great. They're not going to make the playoffs, but dude, the Cardinals, it is fucking bleak for the Colts and the Cardinals. Those rosters are bad. The Texans have an infinitely better roster than the Colts. And so I struggle to see any wins for either of those two teams.
We're talking, they're starting off traveling west to east to play the Commanders. They're at home against the Giants. They have the Cowboys, the Niners, the Bengals, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Ravens, the Browns, right? The Falcons, maybe winnable theoretically, but I think the Falcons are better.
Way better.
Like you said, they got the Texans then, but that's November 19th we're talking about. When
they got to beat the Rams in week 6, I think, not to start 0-10 or 0-11.
And do you bring Kyler back at that point? Because what the hell is the point? What is the point? your $35-36 million a year quarterback, guaranteed, by the way, for the next 3 years, I think, something like that, where he's guaranteed money. If he's going to be your quarterback of the future, why do you bring him back off the knee injury? And B, if you are going to trade him in the offseason, why are you going to bring him off the knee injury?
And he's going to look bad, probably, especially on a bad team. It's only going to hurt his trade value. Yeah.
Unless you want to get him some reps, like maybe, but I mean, come on, dude. Like this Cardinals thing, it's a trap. Like it's a trap. It's one that I'll walk into the trap in the 17th and 18th round for the guys you said, Trey McBride, Keontae Ingram, like some of the younger guys that are going to get playing time just so they can get out there and do some shit. Michael Wilson, if he's in the 17th, 18th round, yeah, I'll step on that landmine for now because it's probably a landmine. Let's be real. We're talking about this Cardinals offense. But other than that, every time I drafted Hollywood this offseason, it felt gross. It never felt like the right thing. There's certain guys you draft and you were doing it in the beginning because you're trying to talk yourself into the Eagles bring back for week 17. It's like, you know what? If we get to week 17 and we're building Eagle stacks for DFS, we're probably just looking at onslaughts with no bring back. Like is the way
right. Like McBride. It's like, the punt tight end, which is literally like, think about that. Like when you're making a DFS team, I would like the $3,000 tight end on DraftKings or the $4,500 tight end on FanDuel. Like, pray to God you get the week 17 you got from Trey McBride last year, right? Yep. They were shit last year with Colt McCoy, whoever was the quarterback. He goes 7 for 75, somehow stumbles into the end zone for their 1 touchdown. Like, I don't want to be counting on James Conner luck boxing 30 touches in week 17, his old dusty ass, right? Or Marquise Brown. It just, any Hollywood I've taken, I have 3% Hollywood on underdog. It feels bad. It's like, I just, like you said, sometimes you just become a zombie. You just take the best guy, or look at this value. That's the bigger fucking trap than just like the Cardinals and Colts unserious bullshit. Is like, his ADP 65. Oh, look, it's 78th overall, and Hollywood's still on the board. Look at this value I'm getting. It's like, buddy, value is great unless they don't score any fucking fantasy points, which is what's going to happen with the Cardinals. So, yeah. I will draft some. Trey McBride, right? Like in if you're punting off tight end, you're taking 3 or something. I think Trey McBride's fine. Last round, Keontae Ingram. That stuff. I like those guys.
Yeah, I'll take those guys, but I stopped drafting Hollywood. I never drafted James Conner. I wasn't drafting Kyler Murray. It all seems bad. Like they just seem like bad picks overall. I like Hollywood, like, individually as a player, if he's on the right team. This ain't the team. This ain't the team to take Hollywood. So I'm kind of out on everything they're doing in Arizona.
I agree. All right, next one. We can cover the Malik Davis thing because it's pretty quick. Malik Davis gets cut for the Cowboys. Obviously Tony Pollard makes the team, and then Rico Dowdle has pretty much locked into the number 2, at least as of now. And Deuce Vaughn does make the team as the number 3, and then they're keeping their fullback. So you want to talk about a team showing you what they want to do. The Cowboys are definitely showing us that they love this new fullback guy that they have. And I don't want to get too much into it. There's a ton of conversation in the Discord today. Rojo is technically still around because he's suspended for the first 2 weeks. But most of the indications that we've gotten, it's certainly possible something happens over the course of the next 3 weeks and it changes, and maybe Rojo makes the team and they cut Deuce or something, but it seems pretty unlikely to me. I think this is pretty much it. I wouldn't ever completely rule anything out from Jerry and the Cowboys. Things can change. But kind of like what you said with teams showing us their hand, like this was the situation. Like I pivoted. I'm not saying I have like huge Rico Dowdle bags or anything like that, but once they showed us, like, no, we're fucking serious. Rico Dowdle is the backup to Tony Pollard. It's not Malik Davis. And obviously Deuce Vaughn is like a gadget type guy. He's fun, cool story, but like Deuce is never going to, play 60 snaps in an NFL game. Too little to, do a lot of the in between the tackles and pass protection stuff, but they showed us. And so I'm sprinkled some Rico Dowdle in there, and also made me feel better about Tony Pollard. I think they've shown us that they're confident in those guys. I think Rico Dowdle's a totally fine last round pick now, and I feel even I think Tony Pollard is probably a late first round, should probably be a late first rounder, like maybe right after Bijan or even next to Bijan, something like that. It's just, we've always been worried all summer, right? His ADP kind of got anchored because everybody thought Zeke was coming back, and then Zeke didn't come back. And we're just like, well, Lenny's still out there, right? Hunt's still out there, blah, blah, blah. It's not a 0% chance that those things happen, but I feel pretty confident in Pollard, and I think Dowdle's a totally reasonable last round pick. Anything else for you with the Malik Davis thing other than RIP to your Malik Davis bags?
Malik Davis bags. Well, for Malik Davis, they're saying that the Cowboys actually do want to, if he clears waivers, they want to resign him to the practice squad.
So he's an injury away from being
the dream's
back on
not dead.
Active. Yeah.
The dream's not dead. And the other thing is, if he does get signed by a team, he gets signed by a team. Like, is the Malik Davis thing going to pay off? Most likely not. And there's harder paths for it too, and I'm not going to draft them anymore. But it was most likely never going to pay off in the first place. Right? Like, we kind of knew that. Like, we thought maybe there was a little bit of standalone value. Like, maybe he would get some stretches on the field, but it's going to be Rico Dowdle. Like, whatever. Like, got that one wrong. I'm okay with it. But I'm at 20% Pollard in BBM right now with 5 teams left to draft.
Yeah,
I feel good
about that.
I feel great about Pollard. I thought he was mispriced all year. Was grabbing him as much as I could, especially when you were getting him at that 2-3 turn. How could you not grab him there? So I think that it is all about Pollard, and kudos to everyone that has their Pollard bags packed, because I think, obviously barring injury, we're going to be very profitable because of Tony Pollard this offseason.
Other thing about Pollard is, look at the destruction that happened with those second and third round running backs over the course of the summer. And he's the one who survived, right? Obviously Saquon ended up surviving. Nick Chubb has survived, whatever. But like, Ramondre got Zeke. Jonathan Taylor is literally not going to play football. Josh Jacobs is fine, but if you took him in the late second, well, eventually you were able to get him at the late third, early fourth. So it was just destruction amongst all those guys, and Pollard just kept humming along, and never really rising. He rose a little bit, but nothing super crazy. And I think you should feel really good about Tony Pollard. They're going to run the ball, which is a little terrifying for the Cowboys, but that offense is good, man. That offense is loaded with talent, including him. But bringing in Brandon Cooks, getting Michael Gallup back another year off the ACL, even really want to get Sicko down into the weeds. Apparently, Jalen Tolbert has remembered how to play football after being one of the worst rookies in the NFL last year. Jake Ferguson, Dak is singing his praises. I do like that. For Jake Ferguson, I know he's risen up a lot too, but like, I would feel good about him, and I'm still drafting him in the 160s or 170s or whatever he's going at right now. When the quarterback is like touting up the tight end, said quarterback who made Dalton Schultz a thing, right? Like, I'm going to listen. Maybe it'll be wrong, but I feel good about all these Cowboys, really. I mean, not Brandon Cooks, I guess, but I feel fine about all these Cowboys. Pollard being my Pollard and Ferguson for sure being my favorites. I don't draft a ton of the other guys, but the Cowboys look good. It's a good offense.
I smashed a little bit of Brandon Cooks and the weekly winners on a couple teams, just because I think that's a better format for him. Here's a question I have for you, because people smarter than me are on the other side of this, and I'll narrow it down to 2 names because it was a rank of 4 that I saw on Twitter. But Pollard versus Barkley, who do you like more?
Pollard.
Same. Everyone else seems to like Barkley, but so my Barkley exposure is pretty low because I prefer Pollard over him. So I've been doing that more. Like, if the 2 are on board, I'd rather just bet on Pollard this year. So that's what I'm doing. But Ferguson, I have a ton of Ferguson too. But
making sure this is in the rankings. Yes. So I Pollard 15th overall and Saquon 18th. So not like a big deal, but so like you get through into the second round. Garrett Wilson 13, Amon-Ra 14, Pollard 15, Waddle 16, Devontae 17, Saquon 18. So that's kind of how the second round sits for me, which means you're going to get plenty of Pollard, certainly plenty of Garrett Wilson, certainly plenty of Jalen Waddle, not much Devontae, and probably not much Saquon. So that's kind of where that stands for me. This is a good question. Probably should have covered it during the JT stuff, but we also talked about it. We kind of hit on it a little bit. I've talked about it because I haven't shut the fuck up about Evan Hall for a month or a month and a half or whatever. But what I will say is it's not so much just an Evan Hall take. It's actually an anti-Zach Moss take. So I have been taking some Deion Jackson. I am most bullish on Evan Hall because I think he has the biggest, most well-rounded skill set. I mean, we're going to get Twitter highlight clippy, and I get it. But did you see the pass block that he had in their last preseason game? So the highlight clip that went around, it was a low light clip, but Richardson actually made steps up in the pocket.
Oh, I did.
Really good throw to Downs over the middle on third down. It goes right through Downs' hands. That's the clip that's making the rounds. But Evan Hall was in on third down, by the way, because he's a fucking killer pass protector. And Deion Jackson's like kind of little. Deion Jackson's kind of like more like, I'm not literally trying to make this comp, but like JD McKissick. Like he's a good receiver out of the backfield. He's pretty springy, but he's like a littler guy, not a great pass pro guy. Whereas Hall is kind of a big, strong kid. And he just stepped up and knocked this dude the fuck out. Literally decleated him, put him on his back, which is like honestly shocking. That's a blitzing linebacker, and you just lift him off the ground and throw him on his back is hard as shit to do. Like it defies kind of, science and logic or whatever. But so that clip's going around, and all I can see is I think Hacker sent it to me first. It was like, I know this is an AR highlight, but look at your boy Evan Hall on this play. And I was just like, oh my God. But I do think it sounds silly, like, oh, why are you caring about the pass blocking thing? But I think that's one.
Get you on the field.
This is how you get on the field, right? He's a better goal line runner than Deion Jackson. He's a better pass protector than Deion Jackson. And he's a very capable wide receiver. And he's a great athlete. Are they going to suck? Yes. But that's good for him, actually. Like, if they were going to be good, guess what? JT would be there. And probably Deion Jackson might be playing over might be playing over him. It's not going to be pretty, right? But in terms of the last round pick, I'm still very, very much Evan Hall. And I think Zach Moss is terrible. I don't think Zach Moss is really going to get to play over those other two guys. He may get on the field when he comes back, but he still has a broken arm right now. I think it's Hall first. And for sure, if you want to bet on late season stuff, right, in best ball, when we care about the playoffs, give me the Evan Hall for sure. But I'm not like, I have some Deion Jackson as well. I actually take them together occasionally because it's like I can just wrap up this backfield in the 19th and 20th round on DraftKings. That feels pretty good. But yeah, I'm
Hall as well. It's just like I'll take Hall, and like I said earlier, it's Hall and Kareem Hunt for me.
I'm not going to diagnose this one, but there is something to this. I will say they're going to rise now. So hopefully you got some of those guys before, because now with JT for sure out, we're going to get those guys rising. In the DK draft I did just a little bit before this, they both went like before pick 170 or something. That could be an outlier. It's not going to happen right away, but they're going to rise for sure. But yeah, team Evan Hall for sure. The one other big thing I would say to me was the Rashad Penny is going to get cut for Trey Sermon fucking conspiracy theory nonsense was bogus all along. We knew it. Everyone knew it. And this poor beat writer that is unwilling to hold his L out there being like, I wonder if somebody picks him up on waivers. Like, it's Trey Sermon, bro. No one's trading for Jonathan Taylor. No one gives a shit. They're not using their waiver claim on Trey Sermon. These running backs don't matter. This poor guy is really, really hurting because he predicted Rashad Penny to get cut for Trey Sermon. But it is important for best ball in that Trey Sermon didn't make the team as a fifth running back, and which really would have made our lives terrible. And we have these four guys. I think we all know what Boston Scott is, kind of a special teamer and emergency guy. And you have this three-way committee, which, talking about teams showing us their hand, they've, like, over the last couple of weeks, that's every report is Eagles are going to be a committee. Eagles are going to be a committee. And so I feel literally nothing has changed from you all summer with the Eagles. I think you can take all three of those guys. I prefer Rashad Penny, but if you prefer DeAndre Swift or Kenny Gainwell, that's totally fine. I think Rashad Penny, the reason why the Sermon thing matters is because Penny is the only one of his specific skill set. on that roster, whereas Swift and Gainwell are a little bit more similar. Sermon could have maybe been a little more similar to Penny, a really shitty version of Rashad Penny, but you got those three guys. And so if you thought, there was a risk of Sermon, you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Sticking to my guns, I'm not drafting Rashad Penny. You can't.
Hey,
make me. You can't.
It's fine.
Me.
It's fine. Him and Kadarius Toney are going to be great for 2 games this year, and they're gonna miss the rest of the season. But I'm going to enjoy those 2 games. It's kind of like Sam Darnold for the first month last year. It was fucking glorious. He was leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns. I got to celebrate, post a bunch of Sam Darnold gifs on the internet, and pretend like in week 12, I just pretend like it never happened.
It never happened. Just disappeared into the bush with Homer Simpson.
Exactly. That's going to be the Rashad Penny experience this year. We're going to get one 3 touchdown, 100-yard game, and then he's going to get hurt, and I'm going to pretend like I don't have 30% of him.
You missed the other big Eagles news today, though. You're saying we're wrapping it up.
Greg Ward?
No. They traded.
Oh, Alberto. Yeah.
They traded for a tight end today. they got Albert O on their team, which probably means nothing, but it's like, man, Goddard, there's some competition there now, a little bit.
I think what I will say is he's not going to take Goddard's job, but if you wanted to get frisky in the last, like we're drafting Isaiah Likely.
Right.
You and I, occasionally, you probably more than I'll sprinkle a little Noah Gray in there or some shit like that.
Yep. Might as well.
I've done crazier things than Albert, right? You get locked
You're
out.
You're having troubles. Yeah, I was just going to say, Hurts is the hardest quarterback to stack.
Hardest quarterback stack in the whole league. Well, I would say him and Tua, but at least Tua goes later, so you can kind of map it out a little bit.
But you're not stuck with Tua ever. You're not just
exactly.
You're stuck with Hurts.
You take Hurts late second, Devonta go. You don't have AJ Brown. Devonta goes. You're fucked until Goddard, right? And sometimes that doesn't work out for you either. I've done crazier things than draft Alberto. Let's just say that. So it's 20, especially 20 rounds. You're gonna draft 3 or 4 tight ends. Yeah, I don't see why not. Shit. Week 17. I mean, we want to really gal brain here against that Cardinals team, that unserious ass Cardinals team that we're talking about before. Eagles got the division locked down, playing the worst team in the NFL in week 17. I don't know. I'm just saying there's crazier shit. There's crazier shit. You're not going to get this advice anywhere else to draft Alberto now, but I don't think it's that crazy like a couple times on a team or something.
A few darts. We're not saying to go nuts, but maybe a dart or 2 here or there. Sort of like the Noah Gray thing.
I guess I should also say this is not it. I just have an underdog tweet up here, and there's a couple things missing, like the trade. But it reminded me, Jamison Crowder gets cut, but more importantly, Wan'Dale Robinson's coming off the PUP, and he's on the active roster to start the season, which was a little bit of a stunner. I think it was like even a week or 2 ago, they were like, oh yeah, he's definitely going. He's going to start the year on the PUP, and that is not the case. They've changed their tune over the course of the last couple of weeks. Crowder's gone. We still have an absolute shit show of wide receivers there, but he doesn't have a lot of competition. He has a lot of competition in quantity of bodies. He doesn't have a lot of competition in terms of talent in the slot. Him and Paris Campbell and Sterling Shepard, I think it's probably him and Paris in terms of the real competition in the slot. And if Paris Campbell is your only competition and he was earning a lot of volume last year, this regime did draft him. Now, they brought Paris Campbell in too, but Dayball drafted him, and he was earning a shitload of volume in those couple of games last year when he was healthy before he blew out his knee. I actually drafted him once today in the 20th round. I think he makes for a little bit of a fun, particularly on DraftKings, like you do some funky late Rams Giants thing with him and Kyron or Tutu or all of them, Isaiah Hodgins, right? You can do some really funky stuff with both of those teams that I really, really like. And I think he fits. Like I wouldn't be expecting week 1 Wan'Dale to count in your team, but I think if you think about late in the season, in the 20th round on DraftKings, like him and Kyron or something like that seems, or him and Tutu or whatever or Puka, if you're a Puka guy, that stuff feels pretty fun to me. So I think he's relevant, mainly on DraftKings for me.
Yeah, I mean DraftKings drafters maybe like you said, 19th, 20th round, probably not on underdog.
Good point by Paulino, especially not, he's been undrafted all summer. We just got this news. These contests are anywhere from 60 to 90% full, it's a great time to pull the trigger on him a little bit. Again, you don't got to go overboard, but a few Wandale shares in the last round, I think is totally fine. I haven't been watching the highlight clips, but Gerardo says Tutu is high pointing balls out there. They must not be very high passes if he's high pointing them. But on the Cardinals, I guess I should say Corey Clement did get cut, which Keontae Ingram has been the number 2 there all summer. They've let us know that. So we've pretty much known that. But again, kind of like Trey Sermon, this is like confirmed now. And then there was a little bit of whispering about CEH potentially getting cut for Deneric Prince. That did not happen. CEH made the team. Deneric Prince got cut. I suspect him in particular, kind of like Malik Davis, they'll try to sneak through to the practice squad. But again, if you've been taking some CEH late, I was going to say you should feel good about that. That's not the case. You should never feel good about drafting CEH, but all things considered, at least he's not getting may not score any fantasy points, but he's on the team. So you at least made it that far.
Yeah, and their wide receiver situation, they didn't get rid of any of the guys we were kind of tracking.
Yeah, Justin Ross made the team.
So basically what's probably going to happen with them is Richie James will probably be like a punt returner. And I got this from listening to Daigle, but like basically expect Richie James to be in uniform because he's the punt returner.
Yeah.
And expect Justin Ross to not be suiting up for game days.
He's insurance on
injury.
Insurance on MVS, I think is and Tony, of course, but Justin Watson is Justin Watson, a thorn in all of our sides, stealing snaps and running.
If Justin Watson is the guy this year, I quit.
Running wind sprints. He's the fucking Chris Hogan of the Chiefs. He's out there. And you're going to play him in showdown like twice this year for $200, and he's not going to get a target, but you're going to tell yourself that it was a good play. But I think Justin Ross is just kind of insurance on all those guys. Go ahead.
I just want to address this comment from Only Blur saying, so what I'm getting from this stream is don't draft Colts, Packers, or Cardinals. They are all
I draft the fuck out of the Packers.
I was just going to say, like, dude, we did not say Packers on this stream. Like,
no, sir.
Like, I think the Packers are going to be fine.
And we said draft. I actually got Evan Hull's one of my highest owned running backs. I draft Alec Pierce. I draft Josh Downs. We both draft Trey McBride. I draft Keontae Ingram. It's not don't draft those guys. It's we're not interested in paying the premium for the guys with the projectable volume. So Hollywood, you're paying a premium because he is, of course, the best player, but it's very, very Brandon Cooks-ish of last year, right? We paid a premium for Brandon Cooks because he's the best player on a shit team. That's what you're doing for Hollywood and Michael Pittman. Now, those guys are younger, more exciting players. I'm not going to like hate on anyone that drafts those guys, whereas I kind of was with Brandon Cooks. But in terms of us, I'm actually drafting those teams. Like I said, Evan Hull's one of my dudes this year, but I'm being very price sensitive.
Very strategic and price.
Yeah, I want the young guys, and I want to spend as little as possible because if I'm going to spend a 6th or a 7th round pick, like I can get maybe the number 1 wide receiver on the Ravens in that spot. You know what I mean? I can get rookies. I can get great run. J.K. Dobbins fucking goes in a similar range. Like I can get really, really good players on teams that are really good or certainly not tanking. And so it's just, that balancing act. But definitely, I'm not fading those teams. And the Packers, I'm absolutely not fading the Packers. Shout out to Rob. Actually, I draft a ton of A.J. Dillon. Rob got me on that. I draft Jordan Love. I draft Watson and Dobbs and Jaden Reed and Musgrave. I don't really draft Aaron Jones, but I've drafted Samari Toure a couple of times. Like I definitely draft the Packers.
Musgrave was a guy that I was grabbing a ton of. He's risen quite a bit, so it's a little bit harder. But the Jordan Love Musgrave stack was something that I would turn to, especially because I draft elite QBs. So it was an easy second quarterback with easy stacks. I'm not going out of my way to draft Packers. Like I'm not pulling any of them up the board really, is what I will say. But if they're there, it makes a ton of sense. And like you said, AJ Dillon is just probably mispriced by a round or two right now.
Yep.
So he's just, to me, easy click for certain teams you're building.
Great pick, standalone value and monster upside if something happens to Aaron Jones, which is what more can you ask for outside of the top 100? Jordan Love and Luke Musgrave, RIP to the triple option strategy, by the way. The drafters blew that the fuck up with all these late round tight ends shooting way up. I remember the days of, getting Jordan Love in the 160s and Luke Musgrave in the last round and Hunter Henry in the last round and Jake Ferguson in the last round. And all those guys.
Ferguson was my most drafted player for a while. Like early in the year.
All those late round guys, man.
Sucks. I had to relax when he got pushed up.
Now it's Cole Turner season, baby. We had to we've pivoted around to. So why do you think we're talking about Trey McBride? Because all our other favorite late round tight ends are not late round tight ends anymore. They go much higher. Just to run through a couple of like fun names. I get this one isn't necessarily fun, but relevant. So Pierre Strong got traded from the Patriots to the Browns. So which is not necessarily good for Pierre Strong, but it's not worse. That is for sure. I think he's going to be behind Jerome Ford. I agree. Everything that they've said, they love Jerome Ford. I don't really know why, but they love Jerome Ford. I know he hasn't been healthy, but I think he's pretty much locked into the 2 there. But I do think Pierre Strong is going to be the 3 there. And they showed us that obviously by trading for him, but they also cut Demetric Felton, who they had been really giving a nice strong look to in the preseason games because he's a pretty good receiver out of the backfield, but he did not make the team. Myles Gaskin got cut for the Dolphins. So Savon Ahmed, they kept 4 running backs as well. Savon Ahmed made the team. And Ahmed also looked shot like he was shot out of a fucking cannon in the preseason. Like I would not be surprised if he's getting snaps at the beginning of the year. I think A-Chain will eventually take that over, but I would not be surprised if while Wilson's a little dinged up, A-Chain's a little dinged up, I wouldn't be surprised if Ahmed's out there. So to the question before about should I flex Jeff Wilson, that's also part of the risk. Like I would not be surprised with Ahmed. Another guy that was a kind of a popular guy from our prospect bros, Dwayne McBride. RIP to the Dwayne McBride experience. You made it all of 3 months, and he got cut by the Vikings. So it is Alexander Madison and one of Ty Chandler or Kenny Nwangwu as the backup, and obviously the other one as the number 3. It's been Nwangwu all summer, which is bizarre. And he hasn't really been healthy. So I don't really know what it's going to be.
Heart attack. I just almost freaked out. I typed in McBride to check my exposure in Best Ball Mania, and I saw 19%. And I almost fainted on stream. Like, when did I draft that much Dwayne McBride? But it was Trey McBride.
Yeah, luckily I wasn't into the Dwayne McBride thing. I got tons of other shit wrong. I have 0. No Dwayne McBride teams for me.
Scary.
So that's positive. I have some Ty Chandler, and he is probably going to be just as useless. So it's not like it really matters. But that is about it. Oh, let's really quickly cover the Patriots. And then I do want to hit the last thing on the Colts, then we'll get out of here on that, since we can finish and end with the hilariousness that is the Colts. But the Patriots cut all their quarterbacks except Mac Jones. They cut Bailey Zappi, and then they cut Malik Cunningham. They also cut Kevin Harris and Ty Montgomery. I'm not really sure, honestly, what the Patriots are doing.
They're probably trying to clone Brian Hoyer so they can bring him in for his 7th stint with the fucking team, because God forbid you don't have a 50-year-old quarterback on the roster. You wouldn't keep the one that was the best of all time, right? But you'll bring Brian Hoyer back at 45 years old every year, or some shit bum like that. So there's that.
That is so true. So I mean, he'll probably, as is the case usually when you say things about all-time greats, he'll probably dunk on me, but like, man, I think it might be time for old Bill to let somebody else take the operation over. It just keeps getting worse. This team's not very good. Certainly doesn't help. If they were in the Jags division or something, we might be having a different conversation, but they're in the toughest division in football. Not going to go well for them, I don't think, this year. And I can't really figure out. I really thought Ty Montgomery was going to make the team, especially once they cut Kevin Harris. And I certainly thought one of Zappi or Malik were going to make the team. So they're going to be looking out for another quarterback. somebody that gets cut or whatever. Will Greer got cut. Maybe it's him, or maybe they do ship a 7th over for Brian Hoyer, since he's Aiden O'Connell's better than him. Aiden O'Connell's better than Jimmy.
On stream if that happens. I better not be on stream if that moment happens.
Then to wrap, the Colts, we gotta talk, because it is honestly really hilarious. So the Colts have this JT shit going on, right? So JT's on PUP. Obviously, he does not count towards the active roster. They kept 3 running backs, like a normal team does, right? Most teams keep just 3 running backs. Sometimes the Rams were only keeping 2. So shout out to them. But it is the aforementioned Evan Hull, Deion Jackson, and Zach Moss, who has a broken arm. We'll see if he's ready for week 1. They, however, kept 4 and only 4 wide receivers. I'm not sure exactly what the plan is. I'm also not sure what they're going to do with special teams, because wide receivers are like a fucking linchpin of your special teams units. It is Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, and Isaiah McKenzie. So even crazier is that they have 4 wide receivers, and 2 of them are 100% slot only wide receivers. They only have 2 outside wide receivers on the roster.
Yep.
Meanwhile, they kept not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 tight ends. They have 5 tight ends on this team, which, again, you want to talk about a team showing you what they want to do. I think they're going to run the ball, and I think they're going to try to protect AR a little bit. But the fucked up thing is none of the tight ends are any good. They're all bad. Like, it'd be one thing if you had a bunch of good tight ends, right? Like, I could see it. Jelani, I guess, is hurt, so maybe that's part of it. Maybe one of these guys will get cut when he comes back. But it's Kylan Granson and Will Mallory and I forget, not Alec Ogletree. That's a former linebacker, but Ogletree is the kid's last name, and Mo Alley Cox still floating around, who's basically just like an offensive tackle. But they are, I don't know, man. So like, when we were talking earlier, we probably should have covered that during the Colts session, but like you talking earlier about this team is bad. They don't care that they're bad. They're unserious, and they're showing us that they're unserious. Like, if you didn't think that already with the Jonathan Taylor bullshit, look at what they did with their 53-man roster. They have 2 outside wide receivers on the whole. Then their a couple years ago first round pick and their second round pick, and they kept 5 fucking tight ends. Like,
bet the under. Bet the under on the.
They're terrible. Bet the Jags in week 1 for all alt lines. It's going to be a fucking bloodbath. Play Lawrence to Ridley stacked week 1 in DFS. Like, just fade the Colts. Fade the Colts. Fade the Colts. They're bad. They're a joke. This roster is pathetic, and they didn't even try to hide the fact that it's pathetic with the guys that they kept on the 53.
But it's kind of hidden because I haven't really heard people talk about how bad they're going to be. It's like they're hiding in plain sight almost. Because it's almost like they're hiding behind the JT thing, right?
Yes, 100%. If the JT shit wasn't happening, like if he was actually just hurt and on the PUP, or on IR or whatever, I feel like it would be getting its due. What they just did with this roster. Mm-hmm. But it's like the JT circus, like you said, it's a cloud hanging over all what is the JT thing is very much a circus, but the way,
fucking circus.
It's a huge circus, but
that's the main stage.
That's the main stage of the circus, but there's still a whole fucking circus around the main stage. It's no one's looking at that because the main stage is so crazy, but there's still rides,
the clown car
animals,
stuff with tight ends.
There's people over there throwing ping pong balls into the little the shits and taking the fishing poles in to get the little goldfish or whatever. There's shit everywhere. It's a circus, but it's just we're all so fixated on that main stage that's going on up there that we can't see it. It's bad, dude.
All right, I have a question for you, which I'm probably sure other people are wondering too. What do you have left to draft for teams like across the 3 sites? Like, you don't have to give an exact number, but like what are you focused on over the next week or so?
Done with the BBM, so I'm really not going to draft anything on Underdog. Oh, you'll appreciate this. So I did my 150 150th BBM draft on stream last Tuesday or whatever before I went out of town last week, and it was good. Had a great time. The chat was great. And then over the weekend when I was gone, one of my BBMs got voided. So I had to do another one. I was thinking about doing it on stream, but because it'd be funny to do, but I didn't. I didn't feel like it because I'm just kind of in the zone on the other sites. Did it today, and I got Jamar Chase 104.
Fuck off.
104.
I hate you so much.
Jamar Chase.
I hope it gets voided. I hope that one gets voided too.
If that one gets voided, we're emailing support, or Rudman's going to get a phone call. But because even better, the Pollard fell to me like 4 picks past ADP in the second round. So we started Jamar Chase, Tony Pollard. First time I've got that combination in any draft all summer. I know Pollard was going at the 2-3 turn. I just didn't happen to have any Chase Pollard teams. And so to get that was pretty fun in the last team. But yeah, so I'm done.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was great.
I'm done with the underdog. I have like 30 or something DraftKings Millie teams left. That's pretty much all I'm doing over there because I got some of the 555s in yesterday morning before we're hitting the airport. Shout out B Kurt. Shout out Bernie. Sent out the bat signal to the chat that it was basically almost full. So I just ripped a few 555s. I did draft JT on one of them. So that sucked, but so pretty much just the DraftKings Millie, and then I imagine next week is just going to be drafters because I got more than 50 left of drafters to do, so that'll be my focus next week.
I got 30 drafters left for the $20 championship, but we also have those tickets coming in for the August draft. And I don't know because I have no communication with them, but my assumption is they're going to run a ticket weekend again this weekend.
I would assume
I would assume so. So I'm kind of like holding off a bit to just maximize like value on that. So I have 30 left, but I don't think I'm going to fire another team until Friday on that. I have 5 BBMs left. I'm going to do my last one on stream on Sunday. I'll do it. I think we're going to, because it's the last Sunday stream, I'm going to do my last BBM, and I'm going to do a drafters championship. So you get 2 drafts on Sunday. I'm only doing about 15 of the weekly winners, and I have like 7 or 8 left of those to do.
That's a good point. I just want to add, I am going to do some more weekly winners. It's a little bit more about how much brain power and time I have next week, but that will be, if I'm in a good spot with everything else, that will be, I'll definitely be doing some weekly winners, and maybe we'll stream 1 or 2 weekly winners next week as well. Have some fun with that.
And I stopped drafting on DraftKings for reasons that I had 5 drafts in a row that the interface was just going haywire. So I was like, I one point, sorry, I'm venting, but one point I'm sitting there staring at the thing. I'm up in 2 picks, and then the whole screen just flashes, and I had auto picked. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? So I think they made a lot of strides this year. I think they offer great contests, but at this point, dude, I was going to do some of the 555s. I've actually pivoted some of that money, and I've been firing. I think I've done 3 of the 250 on drafters now. I just decided to pivot some of that money over there.
I want to do that one too. Yeah.
It's like half full right now, but it's a good contest. It'd be nice to get the 102, and that I won't, but it'd be nice. Nice. Instead of drafting from the fucking 109 every single high stakes draft that I do. It's been a thing.
I love it. But we, I guess, super quick housekeeping. If you have not signed up yet for drafters, if you're watching us, maybe you already have. Obviously, Drafters Fantasy, one of our partners, you can sign up there using promo code SPIKE, and you'll get 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Obviously, that is 5 free entries into their $20 Drafters NFL Best Ball Championship. They also have a mini Drafters Best Ball Championship, which is just $3 to get in. So you can.
That's filling. If you want that, you got to get into it now.
And that one's going to fill. So there ain't any overlay in that one. But if you want to dabble into their $3, I would get in there quickly. If you want to get into the $20, like I said, you can use promo code SPIKE. On top of I can't even like spout off all the free ticket offerings that they have. There's so many. They're giving away tons of free tickets. Follow their Twitter account or check their website. They're constantly posting new weekend promos, month promos. There will probably be something for the very last week, something for the very last weekend. Make sure you're following Drafters and checking that out. But if you sign up using promo code SPIKE, you can also get a free month of Spike Week premium access. So access to our tools, access to our rankings, access to all of anything that comes with our premium suite, which you can find on the website. So yeah, Drafters for this last week or so, lots of goodness, lots of free money out there for Drafters. That is for sure. Anything else before we get out of here? I know, yeah, you'll be drafting on Sunday. I'm going to try to record something, I think, this week. And then we'll be doing a bunch of stuff basically over the course of this next week and a half. Like I said, want to do something with weekly winners. I think I want to maybe try to stream one of the 250s on Drafters, but so just be on the lookout. Our Monday and Tuesday shows are not going anywhere. Once the season comes here, Monday Night Best Ball tonight, Spike Week Sickos on Tuesday, not going anywhere. That will be continued on into the foreseeable future. Obviously, this Sunday will be Rob's last Sunday Sicko Sunday show because there's going to be no more drafting on Sundays after the season is here. But be on the lookout over the course of this next week and a half for ad hoc streams, one-off streams, pop-up drafts, recorded shows, recorded drafts, all sorts of fun stuff. We're going to try to pack as much in as we can over this next week and a half. And if you subscribe and you use our rankings, I'm going to have those finished here tonight after this show. I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going to plop JT in. That's the biggest one, but those will be updated here in the next hour or two.
Sounds good. Yeah, nothing else for me. I'm having a lot of fun this year. Oh, you know what? If you're feeling burnout, you should just remember you only have 8 days left to draft. Make sure you're having fun is basically what I want to say. You have 8 days left to draft. And I guarantee you, I don't know if this is your first or your second year drafting, but what happens when you are done next Thursday night, when you sit down and you watch that first football game and you wake up the next morning and you can't draft, you're going to be like, holy shit, what do I do? It's going to hit you for a few days, and there will be resurrection and playoff drafts that will pop up after a couple weeks. But that at first you're like, it just becomes part of your life. So enjoy it. It basically don't let it burn you out. Make sure you're enjoying it. Make sure you're having fun still. But you are going next Friday morning. It's going to hit you. Like if you normally draft in the morning, the afternoon, at night, you're going to feel it. You're going to be like, holy shit, I'm not drafting today. I'm not drafting this weekend. So
it's a really great point. I actually think this past weekend, when I was out of town, I wasn't drafting around the clock. I was drafting because you can't take like 3 days off. Otherwise you're not going to get everything done.
I had to draft at Six Flags.
I was drafting the morning of the FanDuel live final. Supposed to be, making a baseball team. I'm drafting a fucking best ball team. But, I feel rejuvenated. I'm really excited for this last week and a half. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. Getting through camp, the camp cuts and all that kind of stuff also is pretty fun and exciting. And yeah, we'll be here streaming plenty and posting tons of drafts. And we will be doing in-season stuff, like you said, resurrection. I mean, DraftKings has Monday morning, they launch a new every single week. There's a new best ball tournament. So we'll be dabbling in some of that too. But of course, it's not quite the same as, BBM and the DraftKings Million and everything. But we will catch you guys here in the next couple of days. Again, use promo code SPIKE on Drafters. That baby is going to overlay big time. We are not going to get close to filling. So if you are trying to prioritize,
70 to 75% is probably where it's going to get. And that's being optimistic on 75%, I think.
I totally agree. So if you're prioritizing your time, check everything out over there. And we will see you guys in the next couple of days. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.